Welcome to Elon Musk Woke Messiah by LBN, our book read through. We're getting closer to the end. We left off on this page, and it starts off with the Bertrand Russell quote that reads, "Men are born ignorant, not stupid. They are made stupid by education." And then in parentheses it says, "Thanks, I'll tell my teacher." Don't do that. Yes. Born ignorant, not stupid. Yeah, I think you really got to look at the education system, what you're teaching and how you're teaching. And maybe it made sense at a certain time, but it seems like something that hasn't really evolved as much as it should. I mean, what's more important than education? Are we prioritizing it? We have the LBMC Blur from 2035, and it reads, "The most reliable truth comes from trends, the evolution of knowledge throughout the millennia. What has changed, what has stayed the same. The more time considered, the greater the certainty. Understand everything in your own time, you know nothing. Know one thing over time, you know everything. This is society's true gift, to pass knowledge throughout time, allow for intellectual evolution. Otherwise, we are forever starting over." And then in bold it says, "The more time considered, the greater the certainty. We are forever starting over." Yeah, the fact that we're able to build on the knowledge of past generations is definitely something that seems pretty unique to humans. Interesting. Below that says, "Is there anything more human than humor? Is there anything more depressing than a humorless human?" Yeah, this kind of makes me think of, wasn't there a thing asking Elon about the simple pleasures he enjoys? It seems like humor is such a simple, free pleasure that we don't do enough. It feels like we just evolve out of it, or a lot of us, when it comes so easily when we're younger, which is really a shame. I mean, if you woke up and knew you're gonna laugh authentically 20 times during the day, that sounds like a life worth living. Maybe that should be a goal. Next, it reads, "Is nature and nurture the same thing?" And then in parentheses it said, "Yup." Did they say that before? It seems like they've talked about that before. Maybe it was one of the blurbs. Yeah, we're really just distinguishing outside influences versus inside or internal influences maybe. Then we have the LBM Blur from 2061 that reads, "I often ponder the paranormal. What of other realities and other worlds? What of ghosts and goblins? How do we imagine things that do not exist? Do we, or are we preparing ourselves? Preparing for inevitable discoveries? Are there dimensions beyond reflections? How much of past imaginations have come true? How irrational are our fears? How irrational are our fantasies? Only time will tell." From 2061, and in bold it reads, "Are there dimensions beyond our fantasies? Only time will tell." Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think people would have predicted a lot of the discoveries we've made today if you lived in the past. So while we might try to predict the future, it'll probably be different, maybe more fantastical than even we can realize. Or maybe way worse. Below that is a Bertrand Russell quote that reads, "I've made an odd discovery. Every time I talk to a savant, I feel quite sure that happiness is no longer a possibility. Yet when I talk to my gardener, I'm convinced of the opposite." And that kind of feels like he's had quotes where he talked about the weight of knowledge, kind of. and then, the burden lifted with ignorance. Not that the gardener's necessarily ignorant, but a simpler existence maybe. And really, there's no reason the savant can't be happy, but it makes you think just how much of your reality is created by what goes on in your mind, your thoughts, and the things you think about, and how you think about them, and how often. Next page is another Bertrand Russell quote that reads, "Even if all the experts agree, they may well be mistaken." Yeah, that's definitely happened in the past where the consensus was very wrong. The earth is flat, all that kind of stuff. So, yes. LBM Blur from 2041 reads, "We are all prejudiced. It is natural. We can be no other way. We have to judge. We have to choose. To deny prejudice is childish. We must accept and acknowledge prejudice. It is the only way to appropriately handle it. Handle it honestly, acknowledge it with humility, strive to judge logically and fairly. To deny prejudice is to deny our fallen state." And then in bold it reads, "We are all prejudiced. Strive to judge logically and fairly." I think a lot of people think of prejudice with people, but just even with all kinds of information. You have the information that you have based on your past experiences. That's all you have at your disposal. So I think knowing that that is limited to begin with, and look at new situations humbly, and not with such certainty, is probably a good start. Next, it says, "You can travel the world over dining in the finest restaurants and run by the most talented chefs. You can explore every nook and cranny to find the most unique and rare herbs and spices. Still, nothing will make food taste better than being truly hungry." And then in parentheses it says true. Eating something on a full stomach is not going to taste nearly as good as being truly hungry. And that goes back to simplicity and a lot of things. Maybe doing less or more, or maybe exciting the senses less and getting back down to fundamentals. Doing more with less. Next page says, "Hey Elon, what do you want that money can't buy?" And in parentheses it says perfect knowledge. So obviously he has enough money to buy anything, just about. But what does he want that money can't buy? I would like to know the answer to that question. Then we have LBM Blur from 2056 that reads, "All the ills of the world are bred from ingratitude. People are not conscious or thankful for what they have. They expect far too much, filled with illusions of grandeur. Then they are angered when they receive their just due. Unhappy sitting next to their neighbor, equality an unacceptable sentence. Focused on climbing high above and beyond an impossible task. Why is it so hard to see what we have? Gratitude is happiness in itself, a realistic and true happiness. What a society we could have, what a utopian society if we filled it with grateful citizens, humble and penitent." And in parentheses it says, "That sounds nice." And in bold it reads, "Gratitude is happiness in itself, a realistic and true happiness." How much of our frustrations come from our expectations and are kind of created in our own heads? Again, kind of creating our own reality, focusing on what we do have as opposed to what we don't have. And it kind of makes you think about, even when interacting with other people, what do you have in common as opposed to what you don't have in common. One is going to make you happier and one is going to make you more upset. So why do we so easily, so often choose the one that's obviously going to make us more upset? It's a little confusing from a logical standpoint. Then we have a Bertrand Russell quote that reads, "The search for something permanent is one of the deepest of the instincts leading men to philosophy." Yeah, I think people want answers, and they want permanent answers. Time and change, when that changes knowledge or how you see things, can be frustrating because it feels like you're never going to get to the end. It's all the journey, but even making that journey a little bit more permanent, or what you get out of it. Yeah, I agree with that. And that is where we will end this episode. Thank you for joining us. Join our next episode, and until then, have a great day.